Hey there, my friend. Welcome back to another interview episode on the More Than Social podcast. Today, we have a special guest, Amy Posner, who is really this serial entrepreneur who has so much experience within business. It was such a pleasure talking to Amy, and I know you are going to love this conversation. For me, it actually really brought me back to when I first started my business, which, when we're entrepreneurs, we are those type of people that are just like, go, go, go. Let's build, let's grow, let's start something new. Sometimes it's really nice just to think back of where you actually started from and remember all the things that you went through to get to where you are today. So that was my personal experience listening to this episode. So you also get to hear some stories about when I first started my business and some of the mistakes that I actually made. But we talked all things that you need to know in order to show up with confidence when you are talking to prospects, especially when you're first getting into the role of actually being a business owner versus just doing the thing that you are good at. So your craft, your service, whatever it's going to be. We also talked about that it's okay to say no to some people. And I think that's something that everyone really needs to hear. We are not here for everyone as service providers, or even if you have a product, it's not going to be for everyone. And instead of trying to mold it so it is, it's okay to say no. Now, we obviously talked a lot more than just those two things, but those are my two personal takeaways from this episode. Now, I can blab on all day long about this episode because it was that good. So I'm just going to stop talking now. Let's bring on Amy. Cannot wait for you to dive in. Hey, Amy, welcome to the More Than Social podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Of course, I'm excited to dive into everything. Very curious. I know you mentioned before we started pressing record, you used to be a copywriter and now you're going more into masterminds and everything. So I would love to know a little bit more about your journey just as an entrepreneur in general. And then would love to also know what you do now, who you work with, all that fun stuff.
Sure. So, I've been an entrepreneur, I guess like a serial entrepreneur for 3 decades. I've owned 6 businesses. And when I got into copywriting, that was kind of my sweet spot. It's like, oh, I just loved that business. And then because I had so much business experience, a lot of other copywriters were coming to me for business advice and coaching. And so that morphed into teaching masterminds and group programs and doing one-on-one coaching and mentoring and helping people with copy. And then I kind of expanded out into the greater freelance market because, what I came to realize coaching creative freelancers is people with really great craft skills. Great, super, great way to start a business. But if you don't build some business chops, you just don't eat as well. And so that's become my focus, is helping people, but in a really gentle way, because I think it really freaks people out a little bit, to give them like one by one, like build a series of skills so that they've got confidence and they've got sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you can wear the hat of whatever your skill set is, but if you don't also have the entrepreneur hat or the business hat, it's like you can only go so far. And I find some people have it and some people don't. Like I've always been fortunate that I've always had this business mindset, and it's because my dad owned his own company. So I've had that growing up, but it's like even with that background to a certain extent, there's still so much that you have to learn. And I think it's okay to say that every single person, no matter if you're starting with experience or not, you're always going to be learning as you're growing. But it is kind of scary taking that first leap, especially when you're first getting started. Let's say that like yourself, you're starting copywriting, but now it's like, how do you actually get your first client? How do you actually start making money? How do you quit your full-time job and make this a whole business? Like that is the kind of process that people go through.
Yeah, it's huge. And a lot of that has to do with how you relate to clients because, right, because there's your craft and you're doing your thing, but you need to connect with people who need that craft. And there's just a whole lot of finesse that can be involved in that can really kind of dictate a lot about your business, including your income. Right. So there's like the client facing stuff and then there's the internal stuff. And some of the internal stuff you do so that you look good in front of clients and you present well to them. But it's really important to have the whole package if you want to grow and scale and like stay in the game and not be totally stressed out. And who wants to be totally stressed out, right? Nobody starts a business. Two things: nobody starts a business for the business side of it, and nobody starts a business to be stressed out. So we need to find like the middle ground here.
So if someone is falling in the trap where they're getting too stressed out, do you have certain strategies or methods that you'd recommend people to kind of like pull them back in?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think, and it's the business skills. I mean, it's really figuring out like where are things breaking, like what isn't working, and we really have to look at the big picture because sometimes, like what, and I'm sure you'll know this, but like what people present with, and this is like any kind of client, is not necessarily what they need. Right? Somebody comes to you and they're like,
Mhm.
well, I need more clients. Well, I'm sure that's what people come to you for all the time. They need more clients, but then you have to look at
Yeah.
what's broken. Like, what are you doing now? What aren't you getting? Because they may be getting clients, but maybe they're getting the wrong clients. And so, like, the answer is really that they're not making enough money because they're not in the right market space, or they haven't figured out like where they belong or what their client fit is. And so there's kind of a lot to look at. It's a really like kind of case by case. But yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
usually the stress is time or money. I mean, those are the two big things we solve for, and so we have to kind of look at the whole equation and figure out like how can you run this business more sustainably?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you're totally right to say that people usually come to you for one specific thing, but once you actually start diving a little bit deeper into what do they actually need, that's a whole other conversation. Now, you're talking getting clients at this point, and from a business skill side of things, what about the whole being the accountant, being the bookkeeper, being the HR person of your business, being the marketer, all the things that you have to wear when you're actually wearing that business hat. Is that something that you help your clients and students with as well?
Yeah, I do. You kind of have to because you have to handle all of those areas, and yeah, and I think you have to really know sort of where your strengths are and what things you like to do. Because it's kind of a funny thing, and I don't know if you
Mhm.
agree with this. It's like as a solo, you kind of need to know how everything works. So you kind of have to have a hand in everything, especially at first. But then you need to figure out what can you offload, right?
Mhm.
what tasks, and if you're $100 an hour or $200 an hour contractor, what tasks are $20 an hour tasks or 30 or $50 an hour tasks that you can offload to somebody else? Because I mean, especially as a creative freelancer, your time really is what you're selling, right? And you're not necessarily selling
Mhm.
it your time by the hour, but your time is what you have to work with, and so it's really precious. And so we have to identify what things do you like doing and what do you hate doing, and what can we get off your plate? Because there's also there's so many tasks, and we all know by now, I hope, that you can't really multitask, and the context switching is exhausting, right? It's bad for your brain. Something to like,
Mhm.
be doing all this choppy little work all day exhausts people. And so even just figuring out like how do you work best, and like where's your sweet spot? What do you love to do? And then I feel like we iterate more and more and more till we get them to where they want to be. And the amount of time it takes depends on where
Mhm.
you are in your business and what's already going on, of course. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're getting me thinking about when I first started my business, and I'm kind of similar to your story that you were doing copywriting, and then people were asking you about it, and now that kind of got your business landed in your lap to a certain extent. And same thing with me. I was at this point when I first started, I was actually doing network marketing. And I was getting good results. And people were like, well, how are you getting these results? I'm like, well, I'm using ads, sales funnels, emails, all these things. And people are like, okay, so how do you do it? Long story short, that kind of bloomed into my digital marketing agency. But at that point, I was a solopreneur and I was doing all the things within my business. But back then, my mindset was I can do everything right, I can do everything faster, so I will never outsource. Certain extent, I was working with 40 clients at one time. I remember one, doing all the client work. I was literally waking up, sitting at the dining room table from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed. No breaks, nothing. Like I would take an hour to go to the gym. And I'm like, okay, I'm managing 40 clients, which is a boatload just to begin with, plus all the invoicing, plus all the answering of emails, plus, plus, plus. And it just was like constant, constant, constant. And yes, in the beginning, I felt like I was just motivated. My business is growing, it's taking off. Let's do this. And so that just kept going and going. But at a certain point, it was just like I hit a wall. Like I was completely burnt out. And I realized I can't do it all by myself. And I feel like back then I was scared to admit it. It was like,
Yeah.
am I weak for admitting that I need help? And I feel like a lot of people go through that journey. And I don't know, is that something that you felt, or did you go through that, or do most of your clients find that sweet spot too?
Yeah, they do. And tell me if this ties into that for you, which is, as entrepreneurs, when we need to do something, instead of hiring it, we learn it. Right? Like, "Oh, I'll
Mhm.
just learn how to do that," instead of thinking, "Well, hire the expert who can already do it." And then we just pile on the skills and pile on the skills because we think, like you said, we can do it best and we know it best. And it feels sort of proprietary, right? That's the ownership. It's like
Mhm.
you're going to figure it all out. It's so funny. I was picturing, you said you were sitting at the table. I'm picturing like your parents going by, like having their lives. This whole days are going by, and you're just sitting there and like, what on earth is she doing?
Like, it's a time lapse.
Yes, totally.
Time lapse, just me, computer, just
They're gonna
that's what it was for me.
arrive. Yeah,
Throw some food at me, give me some water.
right. It's midnight, hello. You probably should sleep. Yeah. But that's also
Yeah,
a really fun time, right? It's really exciting. But you can't stay in
it
that
is.
place, right? That's where you have to iterate from. I think people don't, and they don't start to outsource, and that's when it feels overwhelming and they feel like, hey, this isn't what I signed up for. Is this really what this is? And then you look around and everyone else doesn't seem to have these problems because everyone else always looks like they have it more
Mhm.
together. So yeah.
Well, that's the thing, especially with social media. It's like everyone's showing all the good. They're not showing the late nights or the struggles or whatever it is. So it's like, even though people seem like they got their stuff together, it's like they're definitely struggling or they have struggled with exactly what you're going through. It's just a matter of being aware that it's normal. Like us going, like every single entrepreneur is going to have some sort of similar story that they worked their butt off, they figured it out, then they hit a wall, they come down a bit and then they go up. It's like it's that constant up and down journey.
Yeah. And it's really helpful for people to even know that that is the journey, right? Like, oh,
Mhm.
you're struggling and you're like, you want to like put your head on the desk and cry. Oh, you're in the exact right place. You're just where you need to be. Because that's what it feels like sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, running a business is definitely hard. I mean, I love it. It's so fun. It's definitely really rewarding, but you gotta you gotta go through it. You gotta put in the time and effort. But I liked what you said in terms of, okay, learn everything at a certain point. That's kind of where you have to start, but then start outsourcing or delegating stuff of things that you don't like to do. And that's why you start your business in the first place. You like what you do, but there's always going to be the stuff that you don't like within your business. So whether that is taking meetings, doing project management, the accounting, whatever it is, everyone's going to have something different that they don't like. So it's like that's the first thing, in my opinion, to get rid of. Then it allows you to still love what you do.
I agree. And I think you need to be aware of it as you're building, like, because you need to be aware of what you like and what you don't like and what you're good at and what you're not good
Mhm.
at. And that's a tough one. It has been for me. It's like, because I feel like I should be good at it and I should be able to do all the things. And so sometimes if I'm not good at something, instead of letting go, I lean in. And I think, or I have in the
Mhm.
past. And I think that's just not, I don't think that served me. I don't, and it's interesting. I hired someone at one point to help me with something. And I realized, and we were having conversations, like deeper conversations about the business. He's a marketing strategist. And suddenly this light bulb went off, like, I'm not the only brain in my business, right? Because I can't have all the ideas. I mean,
Mhm.
sure, I've got some good ideas and I've built something I really love, but I'm not the only person who can have ideas or who can see
Mhm.
things. And it was so eye-opening for me. It was just really enlightening. First of all, it felt great to have somebody to talk this stuff over with, right? Because we work in such a bubble sometimes, but also to realize like it could
Mhm.
amplify and sort of improve things because there's more than one brain and somebody with outside perspective. So I think I mean, I know for mundane
Mhm.
tasks, that's not, you're not going to get any big enlightening moment, but the moment you might have being released from the mundane tasks allows you to do some of the bigger picture thinking and growing. Because that's the other thing I think is
Mhm.
if you don't streamline things and figure out what you're doing, you end up always feeling like there's too much to do and not knowing what to tackle. And that's
Mhm.
what gets people into the spin, and that's what stresses you out and burns you out. And you can't afford that. You just really can't, in my opinion.
Yeah. I love how you said, like, it could amplify things within your business, and I think that's 100% accurate. Like, even for myself, can I make graphics? Yes. Can I design funnels? Yes. Can I do it all? Yes. Like, I can, but am I a graphic designer? No. So, it's like as soon as I started hiring within our agency, we have a graphic designer that does all the graphic design work, all of the funnel design. As soon as we brought her on board, and this is probably 3, maybe 4 years ago now, everything was so much better. And it's like from a client perspective within our agency, it's like they were getting better results because of how it was looking. It's like I knew I wasn't going to be able to do what a graphic designer can do. I'm just not that creative on that side of things, but it's like, can I do it? Can I get by to save some money? Yes. Is it going to benefit me in the long run? No. So it's like even that balance, it's like it truly can amplify your business. And I love that you said that.
Yeah, and I think, like, what do you think? Do you have to learn that lesson? Like, I think there's certain stuff you just have to go through, right? To learn the lesson. Because like somebody can
Mhm.
tell you the thing all day long and you're like, yeah, 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 whatever. And then when you come up smack against it, you're like, ooh, Right. I remember what Lisa Ann told me. Yeah, she was spot on. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I totally believe you gotta learn it for sure, and I don't I mean, everyone's gonna tell you different things to do within your business, and I think it's there's gonna be a certain point that some things are gonna stick, some things are the right time for you to actually implement, but it's like, okay, if you're listening to me right now and you know that you should probably hire someone to do one section of your business and you're like, "Ah, I'm just not there yet," you don't want to let go of that control, okay, but in 6 months from now, 12 months from now, I bet you're gonna be banging your head off the wall and be like, "I should have done it." So it's like, but I get it, it does take time to actually do it, and some people are faster at doing things and some people are slower, and it's totally okay, the speed that you go at. It's just listening to the advice that makes sense for you right now.
Yeah, and I love that you said that because there's a lot of advice out there, and there's a lot of people I don't who like have done the thing once and then they teach it 10 times, and we don't
Mhm,
know,
mhm,
like if I've done something for me, that's great if it works for me, but I don't know that it's going to work for you. And so, like,
mhm.
this is my warning. Like, get your advice from somebody who's done the thing. That's all, because or has
Mhm.
done the thing, or has
Yeah,
taught the thing, or has proven that it works for somebody else. Because I think that's really it's really scary, right? You go out there in the world and there's so much advice, and you don't know what to follow. How do you know? I mean, I guess there's the people that you're drawn to,
yeah,
and there's the
yeah,
things you already know. But I'll just say that.
yeah, and not everything's gonna resonate with you, and that's okay. I wanna shift gears real quick. So, when you are coaching the freelancers who are just getting into their business,
Mhm.
what is the biggest struggle that you find that people have? Like, from the business side? Like, I know you mentioned they don't have, like, the business mindset or they don't know how to do that, but, like, what is that one thing, like, the first pain point that they have?
It's either getting clients or talking to clients.
Mm. Talking to clients in terms of they're not confident?
Yeah, they're not confident. They don't know what to say. They actually don't know what's expected of them. Like, even like, it's particularly in a client meeting, they have no idea. They don't know. How would they know? Right. It's like, oh, I'm going to show up and sell
Mhm.
you my copy services. Like, hi. But there's a structure and a strategy there. And so they feel uncomfortable. And then what ends up happening is the the client takes control, and then and now we've got a whole different kind of contractor client relationship that they've just set up without even realizing it, and then they want to know why it doesn't work so well. It's like, there's a whole bunch of reasons, and we can unpack that and teach them how to have a different relationship with their clients.
Again, you bring me back to the very beginning. When I I remember my very first prospect meeting, she's still my client to this day, so it like, going back almost 9 years ago working with her, which is
That's
amazing, but it's like,
amazing.
I was so dang terrified, like, I was like, "What am I gonna say? How much am I gonna charge? Like, do I really know what I'm doing?" Like, I knew I did, but, like, on this level, did I know? And it's like, it is so dang scary when you first get into it. So, out of curiosity, if you were talking to me 9 years ago, very first conversation I'm having with a prospect, what would that advice be? Or even, I know you said there's a structure that you like to follow. High level structure, what's your recommendation of someone to follow?
Yeah, so the first thing that I would tell you is that your client is not your adversary. Your client is your colleague. I think a lot of people go into these client encounters feeling like it's up to the client, right? Like, we're gonna have, like even a sales call or
Mhm,
a discovery call. It's like, I'm gonna show up and you're gonna tell me what you need, and I'm gonna tell you what I do, and you're gonna say yes or no, right? But that's not really
mhm,
what's happening. What's happening is you're vetting each other and you're looking for fit, and you're seeing if you have fit. And for me, it's always a problem solution equation, right? Like, you've got a problem, client's got a problem, contractor has a solution. Is my solution right for your problem? That's number one. Number two, do
mhm,
I want to solve your problem? Because maybe I don't, right? Maybe I don't like you, or
mhm,
I don't like what you do, or I don't think I can solve your problem. I'm not the person. And so even going in with that possibility, like, I'm not going in to land this, I'm going in to see if it's something that I have a fit, where I have a fit, or that I want to work on. And
mhm,
so when you approach that just as more of an equal, and you think, hey, I'm a business owner too, and seeing if you're a fit in my business. I mean, there's some work we need to do to get you there. Obviously, I can't just tell you that and it's like, oh, Lisa Ann, here's snap in confidence. But
yeah,
but even knowing those things, you go in with a different attitude and a different mentality. And then I give people sort of like script points to work. That
yeah,
unscripted script points, because it's like a make it your own. But here are the things that you cover, and then that gives you the confidence, because now you have a way to run things and feel like you're in control. And that's the main thing, because somebody's going to
mhm.
be in control of that meeting, and I want it to be the contractor.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, and I'm used to be the type of person that said yes to everyone. I'm like, "I wanna help everyone, I can figure it out on my own, like, let's just get the client on and we'll figure it out," like, and that at the end of the day, what I found based on experience is if you're taking on a client that it's not the right fit, you're either gonna not like the client, you're gonna wake up a little bit more grumpy because you don't wanna work on that project. It's just you're not gonna get the results that you're used to getting because it's not your I'm gonna say expertise, but it's not your like zone of genius. And it's not, you're not putting the right energy into it either. And it's like, you don't have to be that yes person. So I love that you said go in it and see if it's the right fit for both of you. And I think that's something that everyone needs to really listen to because it's okay if you say no. And I know it's so much easier said than done to actually say no to someone. But if it's not gonna be the right fit, it's not gonna be the right fit.
It isn't. And the thing that you have to understand is there's a huge opportunity cost. Because, there you are,
Mhm.
you're sucked up in that project and you're waking up grumpy and you're hating it and you're not liking it and you don't have time to take on the next thing. You just don't. Like the good thing comes to your door and you're like,
Mhm.
I can't, I'm busy. And this is so weird. I mean, there's no explanation for this, but I've seen this over and over. And in fact, I heard someone say this yesterday. Like when you say no, it's terrifying, right? Especially, I mean, you're saying no to
Mhm.
money. Who wants to say no to money? You're in business. But like, it's gotta be
Mhm.
the right money and the right fit, and so often when you say no, the right thing shows up, and it shows up really quickly, and it's almost it's
Yeah.
like it's
And they
kismet, you can't explain it, but I have seen it happen over and over and over and over. It's just so it's like so you have to be really aware of that.
Yeah, it's actually wild how true that is. Even the moment that okay, so let's say that you wanna give up, and then all of a sudden you do give up, I bet you that next day was that day that you soar, or the next week. Like, it may not happen instantly, but it's like, I typically find as soon as people give up, that's when the thing was about to happen for them. So it's like both sides of it. It's so, so true, and so it's incredible. Like you said, who knows how it actually happens, but it does happen, so it's okay to say no. Now, going to the other side of it, so no confidence or lack of confidence actually show up to the meetings, but what about the other side? So they struggle getting clients. How do you recommend people find clients?
It's a very personal and individual thing, I find. I have, some different strategies and, like, I thought, "Oh, well, you can teach each strategy to any person." So not true. You really have to find what somebody's comfortable doing. I think it's okay. Like, I think it's okay to get out of your comfort zone. I don't think that, like, it's okay to get so far out of it that you're just not gonna do the thing. So for me,
Mhm,
it's like I
mhm.
have to find something that someone's actually gonna do because if it's so uncomfortable for them that they don't do it, we're not gonna get any traction. And so that's what I look at first. It's like, well, what do you do now? And what are you comfortable with? And you can bring people over to being more comfortable with things, especially if they see like realize that it's necessary or they see that what they're doing it's like, oh right, that isn't working. So I'm gonna have to get out of my comfort zone. And so that's where we start. And I'm kind of like source agnostic. I don't care. I don't care if I don't care what you use. There's so many methods. I just care
Mhm.
that you do something and that we find something that suits you. And then we can
Yeah.
build on that. So that's kind of an investigation process, I guess, more than anything.
Yeah. So when it comes down to understanding who you want to work with and who you can actually say no to, do you have specific strategies that you can share with our audience? Because the people listening, we are very actionable people. We like step by step things. If we wanted to figure out who it is that we want to work with, what process would you tell us to go through?
Okay, so I love how Canadians say process. It's one of my favorites. I say process. I have a process. It's called Breakthrough Clients that people can get at my site at amyposner.com. And it's a 5 day sort of mini course, but it walks you through identifying who's your ideal client. And one of the things that you need to do is figure out like we start with what you want. How do you want to serve people? What kinds of offers do you want to have? Because there's different clients at different levels, and so we want to know you might have a niche or a vertical. You might be a generalist. Like it's really answering the question: who buys what you sell at the level you sell it at. Because it's funny, like in the copy world, for
Mhm.
example, like there are people who will buy a sales page for $2,000 or $3,000, and there are people who are paying $25,000 and $30,000 for a sales page. So as a copywriter, you need to know what are the differences, who are those clients, and who do you want to serve, and why are there even these stratifications inside of the things that you offer. And so that's what we want to sort out,
Mhm.
because some people want to serve really high end clients. Some people don't. Some people really like complex projects with a lot of moving parts. And it's a funny thing because the big numbers are seductive, right? Like, ooh, closing a 20 or 30 or $40,000 project sounds really great, but they're often way more complicated, than closing like say 4 or 5K
Mhm.
projects that are really simple. You get in, you get out, you get done. So I think like, what do you like? Like I love that. I was like, I want to close
Mhm.
big projects. And then I did. And it was like, oh, they just go on so long and there's so many people involved. And I didn't love it. There's so much project management and details
Mhm.
where I could do like a $7,500 funnel project, which was something I used to do. I could do those really quickly and really easily. It was a much more efficient way for me to make money and so so that worked for me. So it's like
Mhm.
the kind of thing that we have to figure out. So that's a size of client or that's a size of project. Then you go, well, who buys that? And how do I gear my marketing now toward those people? So it's a process of figuring out, and I think like leaning on the levers of what you love and what's going to bring you
Mhm.
the best, I don't know, level of income and happiness in your business. I mean, I'm not saying everything's going to be super lucrative or make you, dance in the streets, but like, can we get as close to that as possible and keep inching closer to that? Like, why not? Right? That's why we're here.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what we said earlier. It's like if you don't love what you're doing anymore because your business is kind of taking over, it's like, what's the point of doing it? And would you say that it's more personal preference at this point? Like if someone's starting from scratch and they're deciding, hey, do I want that $40,000 project or do I want the $7,000 project type of clients? Is it at this point, would it just be personal preference?
Not really, because to land those bigger clients,
Okay.
you've got to have some experience, right? You've got to have some chops. They probably want to see some other big names, like other people in like not well, colleagues or competitors that you've worked for. I mean, there's some stuff to prove. It's not
Mhm.
to say that you can't be brand new and land one of those, but it's probably not going to happen, and you're probably not going to feel comfortable, and you'd probably be really overwhelmed to take on something huge for like early
Mhm.
on. It like that might cause you to quit, actually.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously you don't want that. We want you to keep going with your business. So you mentioned the mini course that you had on your website?
Breakthrough clients, yep.
Breakthrough Clients. Okay, so I will make sure to link that in the show notes. So you said it's a 5-day mini thing that's got email to everyone?
Oh, yeah, it's a
Okay,
5-day it's a
amazing.
5-day drip course, and, we just added a fast forward button into it because someone was like, "Well, I don't wanna wait till tomorrow, I wanna do the next lesson." So it's like people can go at their own pace, but it is a 5-day drip.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing, and the whole goal is to really figure out who it is that you're gonna work with?
Yeah, and it's kind of fun because I have a thing, like, about in the middle of the series where it's like, "If you send me your profile, I'll give you some feedback on it." And I get these emails that pop
Yeah.
up like, "This is my ideal client profile," and I'm like, "Oh, you went through the course, good. You're actually using the work." And then I'll sometimes go back and forth with people a little bit on that just for fun because I like to, and I like to be generous, and I like to be the coach and mentor that, like, actually you can get an email back from.
Yeah, it's so rare that you actually get an email from the actual coach these days, which is kinda sad. Even, like, on Instagram, it's like, are you actually talking to that real person, or are you talking to their assistant who's acting like them? Like, it's you never actually know. I like to send voice notes a lot on Instagram just so they actually know it's my voice, and it's actually me responding to people, but
That's
you
really
never know at the
clever.
end of the day. Actually, just a tip for that, if you're sending voice notes, you'll build a deeper connection too. People like to hear your voice, they like to know you're a real human, so maybe give that a try. But one more question, in terms of doing research
Yeah.
for who this dream client is. So let's say that, yes, you have the experience, you know kind of what you like to do, you know the type of clients on average that you kind of want to work with. How do you really get like nitty gritty with actually understanding who that person is?
Yeah, so, well, like I cover that in like in really granular detail in breakthrough clients. But one of the things that'll happen, so say like one way people might start is identifying a niche. Like say someone says, "Oh, I'm going to work with course creators or coaches," as an example. So usually people have someone in mind, and I got a little side caveat here that's really important. An ideal client is not somebody who you love and admire and love the way they do business, right? Because like that may be
Mhm.
great and like buy from them, do business with them, doesn't mean they make a great client, and it doesn't mean they buy what you sell. And that may seem really obvious, but it isn't. I have people come to me all the time with these wish lists of like, really cool companies, but they're just not a fit. They're not a fit for their needs. And so
Mhm.
that's an obvious one to strike down. But beyond that, I mean, it's kind of where, again, where there's that problem solution fit. So when you start looking for, you start looking at coaches, for example, so you have one and you know one and you go and you look at them. Well, Where are they? What are they putting out into the world? Where are they on social? Who's following them? Who's commenting? So if you start looking at them, and I mean, there's even tools that'll give you like profiles of people and stuff, but you can, as you build up an ideal client profile, you start looking for people who are similar. Sometimes people like to look for people who are a little less famous or a little less known. It's a little less scary to, cut your teeth introducing yourself to people who, you don't have up on such a high pedestal. But honestly,
Yeah.
it's really just that. It's really just like, it's kind of like, how like you get on that thing where you're going down the rabbit holes online and you're like, I can't do this. I don't have
Mhm.
time. This time you have time. Like, indulge yourself.
Go down the rabbit
Go
hole.
down the rabbit holes. I mean,
You can
you'll
do it.
find amazing, amazing people that you can talk to who buy what you sell. And so I think that's the very best way, because as you start doing it, you really learn a lot as you're going around. Like, what
Mhm.
conversations are they in? What do they care about? What are they talking about? Where are their pain points? So those are things you can start looking for. So it's that's kind of loosey goosey. It's not like very formal or fancy research, but it wins the day every time.
Absolutely. And it's so easy now with social media. It's like you can find someone and then go see what they're commenting, what are they complaining about, what are they congratulating people on. Like you'll start to just like notice their trends. And then if you can get them in direct messages, for instance, and start to have a normal conversation with someone, you will learn so much about someone if you actually just treat them like a human and just get to know them. And I think that's like people overthink that. It's like if you have a conversation, let's say you're going on a date, you're going to have a conversation, you're going to get to know them, you're going to ask questions, you're going to hear stories. If that date person is your dream client, have the same type of conversations, get to know them. Forget about selling for a second, just get to know these people. And as soon as you get to know one of these dream clients of yours, the likelihood that there's billions of those same type of people out there in the world looking for you is very, very high. So it's just be open to actually get to know someone. And I know, especially with COVID, it's like people are just like a wall up. It's like, just be friendly. Just say hello. Say hi, I'm Lisa, whatever it is. Like just have that conversation. Now, I will make sure to put your course inside the show notes for sure. So everyone make sure you go and check that out so you can really, really get clear on who it is that you're talking to. Because Amy and I never want to hear that your dream client is whoever's going to pay you. Trust us, we've been through it. That's not necessarily something that you want to go down that rabbit hole. Now, one more question, Amy. I always ask this with all of my interviews on the More Than Social podcast. If you could give advice to a fellow entrepreneur, does not have to be copywriting, does not have to be business focused, just an advice from an entrepreneur to an entrepreneur, what would that one piece of advice be?
Be persistent. That's it,
Love
really.
it.
Be persistent. Stay the course. Like, just like hang in there. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's the best advice. I do. I think just keep doing what you're doing. It's so easy to get. Actually, I'll add one more thing to that. Keep doing what you're doing and keep the blinders on. Don't be paying attention to what
Mm,
everyone else is doing and think that they're doing better than you, because we are all struggling the exact same way that you are. We're just doing it at a different level,
yeah.
right?
I love that. I love that. So thank you so much for everything that you shared today. This has been awesome and so awesome to hang out with you. Best place for people to find you, would that be on your website?
Yep, amyposner.com. And I hang out on LinkedIn a lot, and I'm happy to like answer questions, have conversations. I'm really accessible.
Amazing. We will make sure to link your LinkedIn as well. But thank you so much for hanging out with me on the More Than Social podcast. Greatly, greatly appreciate you, all your advice, all the tidbits that you have given all of our listeners, but also just thanks for hanging out. It's been
Yeah, it's
awesome.
been really fun. Thank you for having me. Love what you do.
Of course. And thank you. Talk to you soon.